Scarifyer has partnered with Notoriously Morbid. Notoriously Morbid has everything you need to get your horror fix, including collectibles, apparel, and more. Their cosmetics line includes beautiful chromes, mesmerizing lipsticks, all in stunning shades. Head over to Notoriously Morbid and enter Scarifyer10 at checkout for your 10% discount.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Brooke.
And together we make a podcast on Elm Street. And you are currently listening to Scarifyer.
New world of gods and monsters.
Hello, you horror junkies, and welcome to Scarifyer. I am your host of the Gov.
And I'm Quinn. And don't forget, guys, find us on Twitter at our handle Scarifyer Pod. Scarifyer Pod, post pictures for us, go through our feed. There's lots of voting polls. Check it out.
And we have a very special episode for you tonight. We are talking Hostel, but we are not alone. Quinn, who is here with us?
All right, guys. We have a very special... We have two special guests with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Marc and Brooke from a podcast on Elm Street. How you doing, guys?
We are great.
Doing well.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome. So go ahead and if you can, go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit about your show. Give us a little inside.
All right. So we're two guys from up in... we both have a undying love and affection for horror movies. And so a couple years ago, we just decided to start this podcast. And we record episodes every week. We drop episodes every week. And just a broad spectrum of movies. We try and do movies that aren't completely mainstream. We've started to do a little bit more mainstream movies recently. But we have a good mix on there of different movies for our episodes and whatnot. We just finished our September sequels, which was a month long of episodes that were all movies that were sequels to episodes that we've done previously. And this is, it's October, so it's the spooky season, right? So we have some good stuff lined up for this month too. And we're on all social media. Check us out. Shoot us a DM. We're always open to talk to anybody, collaborate with anybody. Just, have a good time with it.
Nice. Awesome. And how long has your show been going for?
We dropped our first episode in late November 2 years ago. So we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary.
Oh, wow. Goes by fast, doesn't it?
We actually talked about that the other day. We're like, how has it been 2 years already?
You blink and it's gone.
Yeah. Well, Scarifyer's been here for 3, so we
hear ya.
Yeah. All right, so we got a movie to talk about, and that is 2005's Eli Roth's quintessential Hostel, the movie that it was the follow-up to his Cabin Fever and arguably his most successful film.
Well, it's definitely one of the most recognized, if nothing else. So, Gov, as per tradition, would you like to give us the lovely backstory?
After the success of Cabin Fever, Quentin Tarantino reached out to Eli Roth in hopes to work with him on his next project. After taking advice from Tarantino on passing directing duties from remaking Last House on the Left and The Fog, Roth comprised an original film based on the supposed dark web underground Thai murder vacation spots. Originally conceived as a fake horror documentary based on the murder vacation spots, Roth could not find sufficient evidence to such a thing existing, thus writing a fictional narrative film instead called Hostel. Hostel was released to American cinemas on January 6, 2005, making an amazing $82 million on a $4.8 million budget.
So it did well.
It did very well.
Oh my gosh.
So shooting it over to you two guys, when did you see this film first?
I first saw it probably shortly after it came out. I don't think I saw it in theaters, so probably like 07, 08, around there. And I've only watched it a couple times because I'm kind of touchy on the gory stuff. So, yeah. So I'd say probably like a few years after it came out.
Yeah.
When it first came out, I would have been 16 because it came out in 2005. So yeah, I definitely didn't see it in theaters, but I worked at a video rental place back then, and I probably watched it the year that it was released on DVD. And I watched it a lot as a teenager, and I remember it being significantly worse than what it was on this watch, like for gore factor. But yeah, it's been a long time since I've watched it. And then Brooke suggested it for this episode, and I was like, oh, this is a weird movie for you to pick because it's just a gore fest. But
I mean, it was definitely a blockbuster night for myself, and I want to say it was around that same time, around that 2006, 2007. I didn't see it in theaters. So, Mark, you said you watched it repeatedly, so were you into this sort of film?
I've always been a fan of the gore.
The gore now?
The more, yeah. Not so much the like sexploitation stuff. I mean, as a teenager, I probably loved it, but as an adult now, it's kind of cringy. But yeah, I've always been a fan of the gore. The more over the top it is, the better. Like, I just recently watched Street Trash for the first time earlier this year, and that movie blew my mind. And like, I don't know, I love the B movie gore stuff too. But yeah, this one was good. It was up my alley for that time period for sure.
I actually think I was pretty late to the game when I first saw this movie. I didn't see
Do not tell me that this was your first time seeing it.
No, look, I won't get in trouble this time.
Yeah, right.
I saw this back in 2011 or 2012.
Okay.
I've seen other Eli Roth films. I'm not a huge fan. I mean, he's creative. Please don't get me wrong. He is very creative. Just not really my thing. And I just decided to give it a shot, kind of like background noise. And this was only my second time of viewing it. And now I remember why.
And why is that?
I mean, it's an okay film. It kind of reminds me of like an after school PSA. Don't be an idiot.
Yeah.
Don't be an idiot.
What the hell is this? It's one of those campy 70s throwbacks that appeals to Generation Xers. We need another Vietnam to thin out their ranks a little.
It's like Taken on steroids.
It really is. Yeah.
That's a great way to describe the movie.
It's definitely okay. I'm not a huge fan of this genre or the subgenre of horror where it is more exploitive on the gore aspect or the cringe aspect and stuff like that, which is a huge part of the genre. It is, yes. But and this movie isn't entirely pointless. It's a cautionary tale, as Quinn kind of alluded to there, and it makes a valid point. For me, the movie is like 98 minutes long, and I feel like each time I watch it, I'm sitting for like a minimum of 3 hours. It seems like it takes forever to get to where it needs to go.
Yeah, especially the first act I found this watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the crazy shit doesn't start happening until like the last, half hour of the movie maybe?
Exactly.
Yeah. One thing I will give this movie props for, though, is its use of practical effects. Because I'm a huge sucker for practical effects. I don't really like... One of the things that drives me nuts is CGI blood.
Oh, shit.
And it's so bad. But this movie really does incorporate that practical effect, and that earns a lot of respect, at least on my end, for it. So that also shows craftsmanship. So, yeah. I mean, I'll give it a break for that.
You had one of the godfathers of special effects doing it, too, with Greg Nicotero.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's, yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as Quinn. Like, I'm not a huge fan of Eli Roth. I, respect the hell out of him, but just his movies aren't my cup of tea, really.
Yeah. I think I'm more of a slasher girl.
Well, I mean, it begs the question, because we didn't cover this movie, but we covered this subgenre, the Gorno or the
splatter films,
torture porn, or whatever you want to label. We we covered it in kind of a roundabout sort of way few months back on the show. And my whole point about it is, like, I'm going to be devil's advocate and be like, how come this kind of movie is held in a different regard to, say, a Jason movie? Because they're both, especially the original Friday the 13th, it's trying to do the same thing. They're effects movies. You know, the big deal Friday the 13th in 1980 was, wow, nobody's seen people die on film that way before. Same thing with Hostel in 2005. So what makes one better than the other? And we had somebody say that because Hostel is real. It's realistic. It can really happen. And I don't know if I agree with that. What say you guys?
Whenever you were talking, like, at the beginning of, like, the backstory of the movie, about how it was sort of like a almost a documentary sort of thing with the dark web, it made me think, like, oh shit, I wonder if there actually is things like that happen. And then you said, well, he couldn't find any facts on it. But I mean, it's not that crazy of a thought, in my opinion. Like, there's some fucked up people out there, and the dark web hosts a lot of those people. But yeah, I don't know. It is a bit of a far-fetched idea, but I wouldn't be surprised necessarily if I heard about it in the news one day or something like that.
That's true. With, like, the human trafficking and stuff, that is really problematic.
And, like, we had a guy up here who was famous for infamous, I guess, for a year, Luca Magnotta, because he cut up a person and sent the body parts to our parliament.
Oh my God.
And that was the big story for the documentary "Don't Fuck with Cats" on Netflix. I don't know if you guys watched that or not.
No.
It was this Facebook group of, like, men and women that literally did the FBI's job and found him and located him. He got arrested and everything like that.
Oh wow!
Wow.
Through like pictures and stuff that he'd been posting, they figured out where he was. But I mean, like, it's stories like that makes you think, like, maybe it's not such a crazy idea.
That's true. That is so true.
What I found out about that story on the dark webs, the Thai murder spots, is, again, no one's been able to prove that they exist or anything like that, but from what I did hear is that it wasn't as, I guess, visceral as Hostel is, where it's just torturing somebody for however long it takes them to die. It's more like you can go into a room and shoot somebody in the head and then pay your money and go.
Well, it's kind of how the near the end of the movie, like, they kind of, the one guy is like, oh, do I just, kill him right away, or do I do it slow? Like, how should I do it?
Right, exactly. Which is probably my favorite scene in the movie. I don't know about you guys, but
it was hilarious.
I love the locker room scene.
I don't know if you guys have watched Suits, but yeah, Lewis, that's who plays the guy that he's talking to, and I love him as an actor. I think he's fantastic in Suits, and his character was good in this movie too, even though it was a short-lived character.
So, interesting tidbit, Derek Richardson, who plays Josh, is actually from the town we are currently in.
Really?
In upstate New York and stuff like that. And I've met his parents.
I was not aware of that.
So that was really cool to see. What do you guys think about the characters in this film? Do you feel like they were, like, fleshed out, or they were relatable or anything like that?
I don't think so. I thought it was weird that Roth he kind of made Americans, like, look really bad in this movie.
They really did, yeah.
And I don't know if, I don't know why he did that, but just for the movie, I guess. But it felt like it put a bad rap on Americans, like, traveling and stuff. I don't know.
I almost feel like his portrayal of Americans is what European people see them as. Like, as tourists.
That's a really interesting point. I could see that.
But yeah, I think, like, Josh, I think he's the only one that would be relatable, really, because he's the only one that's not like, guys, I don't want to just come here and just, like, stick my dick anywhere, for lack of a better term. I'm gonna say, like, he seemed like a lot more toned down than the other two guys who were there for one reason and one reason only.
You know what I found really interesting, though, about it is they kind of turn a trope on its head by having Josh the one who gets brutally murdered, even though he's the more rational of the two.
Yeah.
And Paxton, played by Jay Hernandez, is the guy who's like encouraging bad behavior, and he survives.
He survives. It doesn't feel fair.
It really doesn't.
True.
We feel now is the best time to tell you that Scarifyer is a proud supporter of Rue Morgue. Rue Morgue is the world's leading horror and culture and entertainment brand, spearheaded by its multiple award-winning magazine, Rue Morgue and Rue Morgue Digital. But if reading is not your thing, that's okay, because Rue Morgue TV, the official YouTube channel, as well as Rue Morgue Cinema, which produced the acclaimed original film The Last Will and Testament of Rosalind Lee. So head over to ruemorgue.com and subscribe to Rue Morgue Magazine for your bi-monthly slice of horror, culture, and entertainment today. So, have either one of you seen either sequels to this movie by any chance?
I know I've seen the second one. I'm not sure if I've watched the third one or not, though. I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen the second one like maybe once before, and I didn't even know there was a third one, to be honest.
Wasn't the third one a direct
The third one was
DVD?
direct to video, yeah. I mean, did you guys care for the sequel to it? Or
I honestly don't remember anything about the sequel, so I'm gonna say no.
left a real big impression on you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's only one scene from the sequel that stands out to me, and it was a girl that was hanging upside down, and they were like bleeding her into a bathtub or something like that.
Yeah, and she bathes in her blood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the only scene that I can honestly remember from that movie, so I'm probably in the same book as Brooke.
Well, it's funny because upon doing more research for this film, I didn't really realize about the third one either. And then I was like, oh, wait, yeah, that one went straight to DVD. But if you think about it, when people talk about the Hostel films, this is really the only one that stands out. So was it a flash in the pan?
I think it lost any kind of like franchise momentum as soon as Eli Roth stepped away, because he didn't do the third one. He only did this. He did the first two, and then he just totally bowed out of it and stuff like that. So, probably typical Hollywood. Let's cash in.
Right.
We have the rights. Let's make a direct-to-video third sequel, and then let the thing just kind of burn out. But do you guys think, in terms of flash in the pan, do you guys feel like the whole splatter film or Gorno genre kind of came and went, and we haven't really seen it again? Because after that, we got very paranormal in our horror movies, and now we're kind of seeing a resurgence of older stuff like your Halloween and Halloween Kills, and God, they're remaking every slasher again. Now it's driving me nuts, but do you guys feel like that subgenre kind of came, did its thing, and just went?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like you just said, like it's like every few years there's the next subgenre that's the thing, and yeah, there was the Gorno, as you call it. There was like zombies were a huge thing for a while, and then the paranormal, like you said, and like I find right now, like they're doing a lot of remakes and whatnot, but this era of horror just seems a lot smarter than like the 90s and the early 2000s. Like we have movies like Midsommar and Hereditary and The Witch and The Lighthouse, and it just seems like every director is trying to outsmart the last director that just released a movie. A lot of it's like psychological now, where this gore doesn't really hold a place.
I never thought of it that way, to be honest. That's actually terrifying.
Yeah.
That's actually terrifying when you put it that way. Well, then here's a really good question, because, I mean, somebody please correct me if I'm wrong so I don't have a blonde moment. Saw came out around the time that this movie came out, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so then here's a question. Why is it that Saw was able to launch this humongous franchise, but Hostel wasn't?
Saw was smarter.
Explain.
Saw had more of the psychological aspect to it, in my opinion. It wasn't just torture porn. Like, obviously, torture is a huge part of it. But Jigsaw had his reasons for doing what he was doing.
Right.
Whereas in the Hostel movies, it's just rich guys with more money than they know what to do with, and they're sadistic as fuck, so they're going to spend this money and torture somebody. Whereas Jigsaw was doing it for, like, I don't know, like he says in the movies, he's giving them the choice. Like,
Right.
you've done shitty things in your life, and now I'm doing something shitty to you, but you're able to get out of it. But there's a huge risk in getting out of it.
Right. Teaching people to appreciate life effectively.
Exactly. And I mean, Saw spawned what, 7 actual sequels, and then there was Jigsaw, and then there was Spiral, which just came out. So technically, like 9 sequels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I just went through and I watched them all in succession this past like couple weeks, and as you progress through it, they do get worse in most aspects. So I mean, realistically, they probably could have stopped after like Saw 5, maybe.
I think they were pushing their luck a little bit, around that like Saw 5, like let's see how much further we can do.
I mean, I kind of tapped out after 3. I've seen them all, but when I kind of stopped eagerly going to see them after 3. And you know, I think I agree with you in terms of like, at least with Saw, the reason why that was able to sustain a franchise and keep creating and building one is because there's way more to it than just rich guys paying money to torture, hapless tourists. Because really that's all there is, because that's all you see in the second one. I mean, as it was pointed out, the only thing that is really memorable about the second one is the hanging upside down bloodbath with the Seath. And honestly, I've seen the second one. That's the only thing I remember. Besides that, it's just a remake of this film with women.
Does anybody have a kill that they thought was cool or an effect that they thought was interesting?
The one for me that kind of gets me every time, it's whenever Josh gets killed, because the guy like slits the back of his Achilles tendon, and
Achilles tendon.
he's like,
always
okay, he's like, you can go now. And just when he stands up, like, oh my god, my body just felt so bad. Like, I got chills. Like,
that's the one
that
thing.
scene just gets me.
That's the one thing in a horror movie I can't watch is the Achilles tendon. I'm like, no.
Not me either.
Yeah, because you can just feel it. Ugh.
Exactly. Oh, somebody else.
that scene is almost like it's paying homage to Saw, because Saw came out the year before this one, and like he slices his Achilles, he undoes his handcuffs and whatnot. He's like, okay, you're free to go, but like have fun trying to get out.
Yeah.
And I like how the Dutch businessman, like he kind of has a reason for why he's doing this, because like he says that he wanted to be a surgeon, but they wouldn't let him because he has unsteady hands.
Yeah.
As we see while he's eating his salad with his hands.
Oh, right.
Nice foreshadowing.
I know. I'm not going to lie. I know the first time I ever saw that and he's like eating with his hands, I'm like, use a fork, man. Come on. That's unsanitary. Gov, do you have a favorite?
I mean, obviously, yeah, Josh's death scene is probably the standout of the movie, though I do like the with Paxton, his torturer is very nervous and stuff like that. I do like that interaction. I also like he starts speaking the same language to him.
It's a tender moment.
It is, because the guy is second guessing himself, because he's like almost reminding himself, oh my god, this is a human I'm doing this to, and stuff like that. And but then he orders for him to be gagged and so he can continue. But honestly, the thing that stands out to me the most, and it's not because I was so horrified by it or something. I almost looked at it as like funny. It's when the girl jumps in front of the train. Because I remember seeing it and I go, wow, that's very superficial of her.
Oh my god.
just because she's not pretty anymore? Like, I don't know. Can someone explain it better to me? That's how I read it.
Well, it's kind of a piss off whenever you think about what Paxton went through. Like, he went back into the building. He was out.
Exactly.
He went back into the building. and he rescued her.
Exactly.
And killed a bunch of people on the way back out, and like risked his neck, and then she jumps in front of a train.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Quinn. You're looking at me. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I agree as well. Yeah.
I almost said something really horrible. What would you rather have Paxton do? Push her in front of the train? Like,
why does she have to die? Why can't she?
She was in shock.
I don't know. That seemed pretty.
Okay, it sounds a little vain, but I can understand.
It seemed pretty premeditated.
But think about it. She's cute and, she's fun. Don't look at me like that. Don't look at me like that. Don't wiggle those eyebrows at me and give me attitude. And then all of a sudden, her face literally has been blowtorched. I think you'd be pretty upset if half your face was blowtorched too.
I'd be happy to be alive still.
Yeah, I think I would rather be living than just one-eyed. I mean, there's eye patches for that kind of stuff. And
I knew this was going to happen. I was going to get other guys on the show, and you were going to be like, all right, let's gang up on her.
I'm seeing the movie for what it is when he gets to that scene, because he's right. He does risk himself to go back and save her. He risks a lot to go back and save her, and you think they're going to get away, and she just catches a glimpse of herself in the mirror and hurls herself in front of a train. I'm like, dude.
I mean, the distraction worked. He got away.
Yeah,
That's true.
That's true.
So maybe in turn she saved him. Uh-huh.
I mean, I guess maybe if it was actually structured that way, I would buy it, but it wasn't.
I mean, in a roundabout way, like,
No.
Just give her some
Nice
credit,
try.
okay? I will say, I think it's gonna sound horrible. One of my favorite kills, I think, is when he sees the two Slovakian girls that sent them there, and they're like, oh shit, and he just hits the accelerator and gives no fucks.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the ultimate payback.
Yeah.
I love that moment. I'm like, justice.
And the one girl's still alive, and then the guys that are chasing him run over her.
Yeah, that's good.
So much for severance pay.
I loved how the kid gang was utilized in the end, too.
Yes.
He's got this big-ass bag of bubble gum, and he pays them in bubble gum for them to kill the two guys that are chasing him. And they were brutal.
They really were, man.
Wow, I forgot about that part.
I'll tell you.
Guy's head gets like dented in. It's like, oh, man.
Yeah.
I'll say around that time, that was great birth control. I was like, nope, not me. Nope, not yet.
I guess there's a lot of hidden messages in this film.
It's a cautionary tale.
It is, just all around. Is there anything else that stands out about Hostel to you guys that you guys want to talk about?
I think I would actually like to see a remake of this movie. Because I feel like this one has way too many like gay and like racial jokes, and like I think if they did more with like the story, I think it'd be interesting. So I'd like to see like a remake of this. Like, I know it's not that old, but
a remake or like a reimagining of it.
Yeah.
We'll get Liam Neeson in, and he's actually Paxton's father, and he's hunting down the guys that killed his son.
I mean, pretty much. We already got those movies. Well, I will say this: the film was definitely not without controversy, as Eli Roth really did manage to piss off the Slovakian and Czech Republic governments.
I do remember that.
Yeah, because they did not like how they were portrayed in this film for good reason.
Know that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can understand it.
I mean, I don't know. I never took it as like he was criticizing them or like these are these horrible people that pay to torture and kill people. I kind of think it's more of like what was said in the beginning of the show. It's more of Eli Roth's more slam against American tourism, if anything else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's how I took it.
But at the same time, like, you have to kind of think that there's people out there that watch this movie. How much did it make in the box office? 80 million?
Oh yeah, 82 million.
So like we can say safely that probably 10 million people watched it in the theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Of that 10 million, it probably affected their tourism for a little while. Because, I mean, there's going to be people out there that believe that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, fuck, I'm not going to Slovakia. Look at what they do over there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's people out there that are naive enough to believe it.
Oh, sure.
Because if it's in a film, it must be real.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And Roth actually had a great response to that, which was, paraphrasing, of course, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre was made. People still travel to Texas.
That's fair.
It is fair.
I mean, I get why they would be angry, but on the other hand, it's just a movie. It's just a movie.
Yeah.
Lighten up, people.
Suppose it is that time to give it the rating on the Scarifyer scale of 1 to 5. But before we do, Mark, Brooke, do you guys want to plug yourselves just one more time?
All right. Yeah, once again, we are a podcast on Elm Street, just two Canadian dudes that love horror movies. You can catch us on our social medias at a podcast on Elm Street. If you want to do any sort of collaboration or just shoot the shit talk with us, feel free to slide into the DMs on Instagram. And yeah, we release weekly episodes on different horror movies. So make sure you check us out.
All right. So it is customary when we have guests that they go first. So, Mark, do you want to go first?
Sure. I gave this movie a 2 out of 5.
Interesting. How come?
It's not a terribly made movie. It's good enough. The acting was subpar at best in most cases. If I feel like if the acting would have been better and like if there was more of like an actual story to it, this movie could have been really good because, like I said previously, like you had Greg Nicotero doing the special effects. So the special effects, or practical effects, I should say, were fantastic in this movie. Although they were a little over the top. But I mean, it's 2021 now. This movie came out in 2005, so the times have changed significantly. And seeing the stuff that's on screen in this movie, it's very cringy. Like just the whole sexploitation stuff, and like Brooke, you mentioned, like there's some choice words when it comes to homosexuality and racial stuff and whatnot. So it doesn't age well, this movie. And I think that's a factor in my score also. But I mean, when I first watched this, I used to love this movie, but I was also a teenager and there was boobs in it. So that's a big reason why.
All right. Sounds solid. Brooke?
I also gave it a 2 out of 5. I said that the effects are great and it's a bone-chilling movie, but it's just not a movie for me. Like with Mark, I thought the acting was kind of not that great. And I agree with him. Like, I don't think that it holds up as much as it probably could. So yeah, I give it a 2 out of 5.
I'm probably going to say a 2. I'm going to go ahead and go with the flow. Because one of the good things about the practical effects is you don't look at the effects 20 years later and you're like, oh, it hasn't aged well. So that is a saving grace. I do agree with you guys. The acting does feel kind of off. To me, some scenes are a little stiff, a little forced, kind of. Do you know what I mean? But again, any movie that uses practical effects is a huge bump for me. And it is a pretty good cautionary tale. I'll give it that. So yeah, probably just a 2. It's not terrible where I'm screaming in the other direction, but I'm not gonna like run to go see it. So if it's on in the background, I won't fight.
And I'm going to break tradition and I'm going to give it a 1 because it is straight up for me style over substance. The practical makeup effects are great, and I wish we certainly have more of those than what we do these days. But once you've seen it, you've seen it. I've seen this movie a total of twice in my life. I saw it, rented it from Blockbuster around the first time it came out, and I watched it for the show, and I did not feel like I need to sit and watch it again. It was exactly how I remembered it. The acting was pretty flat. Yes, it's a cautionary tale, and it does its job at doing that, but it doesn't really say anything else. There's not really much of a story to it. What's the story of what's the narrative? You know, Eli Roth said he struck the fake documentary in lieu of a narrative. What narrative? Don't go backpacking and don't make sure you have your drink covered if you set it down at a bar. No kidding. I mean, it kind of does make American tourists exceptionally stupid because a lot of contrivances were put in place for them to end up where they ended up inside the torture rooms and stuff like that. They just happened to have to go along with what these two women were saying. They, sure, I'll take this pill. Don't know what it is, but I'll take it. Sure, you can give me my drinks. You're completely trustworthy. Why? Because I slept with you. I mean, even down to them taking the Icelandic guy. They don't even know who this guy is, and they're palling around Europe with him. It seems like that Eli Roth had to write about like the two most ignorant American college students he could possibly think of. So, honestly, my one grade is literally for it's nice to see practical effects in a movie, but once I've seen them, I've seen them. So, going against the grain with everybody here, and I'm going to go with a 1. It's nice. It's Hostel.
I think that you rated Exorcist 2 higher than that.
Well, at least Exorcist 2, I'm not saying Exorcist 2 is a good movie because it's not, but it tried to do something. I'm not really sure what Eli Roth tried to do with this film except gross everybody out. And if you disagree, please send me some messages or comments on this movie because I would love to know what this movie is about. Alright, the Gov is going to tell you real quick how to bring the horror into your own home with a handmade soy wax candle from American Nightmare Candle Company. The scents are inspired by locations iconic to the horror genre, places like the Overlook Hotel, Sleepy Hollow, and Elm Street. Each fragrance combination is carefully curated to transport you into the story, and the catalog is ever evolving. So head over to Etsy or to AmericanNightmareCandles.com and get 10% off when you use the code Scarifyer at checkout. This deal only makes sense, so get your American Nightmare candle today.
Hey there, it's Quinn from Scarifyer. You ever have one of those days where you're out on the lake and the sun's going down, gazing into the eyes of that special someone, and then you realize, I brought my machete, but no hockey mask? Well, if you're in a rush to make a killing, head over to 13X Studios and get your very own custom hockey mask. Mask creator Rick Stizinski takes a hands-on approach to every order to create the perfect mask to your specialized needs. Why would you settle for red triangles when you can shop an assortment of original styles and colors? Rick's clientele includes Nightmare Toys, Kevin Smith, and Kane Hodder. Head online to follow 13X Studio on all social media platforms. Then go over to 13X Studios on Etsy to put in your custom order today. Don't get caught with your mask off while devising your next decapitation. Go to 13xstudios.com.
Scarifyer.